Hi, welcome back to Crimson Glass on YouTube, and today we're talking about writing villains, something the General Hospital has been pretty bad at for quite some time. It is the second week of August, and I am pretty close to halfway through my month of discovery, in which I pick 6 projects to take from various stages of development and get it ready to actually start writing. Discovery is a term that I got from Lonnie Diane Rich. I will link her book and her podcast below. If you watch me very often, you've probably heard me talk about her, so we don't need to do a lot of introductions on that. I picked, like I said, 6 projects, a couple of sequels, a couple of books that were kind of in the middle of being, that are in the series, and then I think 2 projects that are brand new, that don't belong to anything else. Last week, I finished the first 2. I'm pretty happy about that progress. The first one was The Small Hours. It's a rewrite of the 2008 Kate Howard shooting. I made a video on that. I will link it either up here or down below or somewhere. It's on the channel. And then the other project I finished planning was book 2 in For the Broken Girl series, which is a rewrite of The Lucky Drug Addiction in 2006, and then The Liaison, Jason Elizabeth reconnection at that year. So if you are interested in book 1 of that series, that will also be linked below. This week, I have turned my attention to a sequel that I kind of forgot about, to be honest. It's called Burn in Heaven, and it is a sequel to A Few Words Too Many. A Few Words Too Many is a novel that I wrote in 2014. It's actually the first novel I wrote after returning from I believe it was a 6-year writing hiatus. I didn't write between 2008, 2009, kind of like towards the end of that period, till early 2014. So it was gone for about 5.5 years, which is a pretty long time, I think. Like I said, A Few Words Too Many was the first project I undertook when I came back. And it itself was actually a rewrite of a story that I wrote when I was younger, 2003, 2004. I wrote a story called Poisonous Dreams. You can still find it on my site. I put it in my fiction graveyard, which is where I store all of my stories that I either didn't finish, which happened a lot in my early writing career when I was in my early 20s, or that I rewrote, which has also happened quite a few times. Poisonous Dreams has 2 versions. It will be linked below. The first one is not completely reposted because I forgot it existed, and it needs to be reformatted, and it's only got 13 chapters because I got about 13 chapters in and realized, oh, I don't like this. And then I rewrote it, and the second one is all, like I said, it's linked. That one is finished, and that one sat on my site for a good 10 years. And that was the original story that was going to get a sequel. When I returned to writing, I looked at what I had left unfinished. There were a bunch of different projects that I had in progress or planned and wanted to do, and Burn in Heaven has been on my list since I finished the original story, Poisonous Dreams, in 2004, I believe is when I finished it, which would have been made me about 19 or 20, depending on when I actually hit the end, right? Poisonous Dreams rewrote a spoiler that we heard in April. We heard that Elizabeth was going to get pregnant and was going to be Rick's baby. And, as a liaison fan, we were like, Ugh. I was like, well, no. There's still, our couple could still be the story because I still sort of believed. It's adorable how optimistic we were because here we are. It's the summer 2022 and Jason's dead for the 3rd time. No, I guess it's only the 2nd time. I don't remember anymore. Like, who can keep track? But he's pretty dead this time. I feel like he's pretty dead. Anyway. We still thought there was a chance and maybe we were the story. We were not. But I started that story, Poisonous Dreams, literally April 10th, 2003, which is why it is a rewrite of Elizabeth's first pregnancy and not the second one. She was pregnant twice in 2003. The first time was the baby that she got pregnant with in late April, early May. I don't remember the timing. And then she miscarried it when Faith pushed her down the stairs. She and Rick got married. That kicked off the Panic Room storyline. That is not what this story ever was. It was never a rewrite of the Panic storyline. Like I said, I started it when the spoiler came out in April, so we had no idea how the pregnancy storyline. We didn't know she was even going to miscarry the baby. If you are interested in seeing how the Panic Room could be re-envisioned after her miscarriage, that's Mad World. Linked below. Check it out. At the time, of course, we did not know that Rebecca Hurst was going to get pregnant in real life, and they wrote that pregnancy into the show, which is why she got pregnant twice and why Cameron exists. So, like I said, A Few Words Too Many is a rewrite of Poisonous Dreams, and it is set in the spring of 2003 with Jason stepping in to claim paternity of Liz's baby, thinking it'll make Rick leave town. At this moment, Sonny has decided he can't kill Rick because that's his half brother. He doesn't feel like he doesn't want to do that, and so Jason's under orders not to do it. So he claims paternity of Liz's baby to hopefully Rick will leave town. It does not work because Jason makes a decision that you can't tell anybody the truth. Because remember the last time he claimed paternity of a baby and he told his girlfriend the truth? The girlfriend told everybody. And that was Robin. And if you can't trust Robin, how are you going to trust Courtney, right? So he decides not to tell anybody, including Courtney, and Courtney believes it and breaks up with him, and Jason and Elizabeth kind of navigate their way through that. In the background, Rick is trying to who never believed Jason in the first place, is waiting to kidnap the baby and convince Elizabeth to come back to him. And he and Faith are working in the background to take down Jason and Sonny, but Faith realizes that Rick is actually in it for the baby and for Elizabeth, abandons him at the end of the story, spoiler alert, because, it turns out she's been used and, Faith's not happy with that. And so she splits and Rick meets his justified end. And then in the epilogue, for a few words too many, we have a letter from Faith delivered on the baby's christening, because that baby survives, there's no miscarriage, so that baby exists. Faith sends a note. That note that's in A Few Words Too Many is actually the exact text of the note that was in Poisonous Dreams. I always intended for a sequel to exist. There's actually 2 versions of Burn in Heaven that already exist. You can find them linked below. They are in the fiction graveyard. I did not finish them because it turns out I don't like Poisonous Dreams. I don't like the story. I made some choices in there that I'm not happy with. I ended up not liking the name I picked for the baby. So I didn't want to write that. I just picked a bunch of conflicts. I was not happy with how any of it was planned. So when I took my writing hiatus, that story kind of went into the dark. When I came back to writing in 2014 and I looked at Burn in Heaven, I realized I still want to write this story of Faith coming back and doing these things, but I don't like the original story. So let's just let's rewrite the original story, and then we'll write a sequel based on that story. Here we are. What does this have to do with writing villains? In order for a villain to be scary, particularly a soap opera villain, they have to do some damage. End of story. And that was one of my major problems when I was watching General Hospital in the O's, from 2000 to 2010-ish. They would bring on these villains for Jason and Sonny to fight, or, they'd bring on Helena Cassadine, and just, no damage would be done. And, it was really frustrating. Jason and Sonny always won. Right? Faith died. Tagliati died. Lorenzo Alcazar never got anywhere with anything. Luis Alcazar died. Marino died. Sorrell died. And can you actually tell me any lasting damage from any of those people? I mean, I guess Alcazar kind of messed up Sonny and Carly's marriage, but to be fair, they were quite capable of doing that on their own. Marino shot Jason and caused Sonny and Carly to sleep together, but I don't think that's the kind of damage we're talking about, right? What did Sorrell do? Really? Gave us Xander, so thanks for that. He's and when Helena, what damage has Helena really done except ruin the character of Lucky Spencer, who, by the way, was already a smug, dismissive, arrogant prick. We just didn't notice it because Jonathan Jackson was good at it. Turns out when you play an older version of that character, the exact same way you played the teenage character, it's pretty whiny. So there's that. So a villain has to actually be scary. A villain has to do damage. A villain has to change the world. There have to be stakes, right? And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, and how I am using Burn in Heaven to write a better, more scary villain. Faith, I think, is pretty scary because she doesn't have a conscience. She wants revenge. She's going to get her revenge, and there's going to be a body count. And I don't mean this the way that Stranger Things meant it in season 4. Spoiler alert for season 4. We were told there'd be a body count in the final volume too. And I was like, oh, they're going to take Steve from me. It's going to be Steve. It's going to be Steve. Oh no, it's going to be Steve. And then it's fine that it wasn't Steve. I'm not mad that it wasn't Steve. But then it was nobody. I mean, yes, it was Eddie. Pour one out I need a minute. Yes, it was Eddie. Okay. You mean the new guy you brought in this season, and I kind of figured he'd die from the moment I started liking him in season 1 with Chrissy, in the episode of the season? Yeah, okay, you always kill off the new guy. Argyle and Robin are the only, 2 new characters you haven't killed off. You didn't even kill off the fun any of the Russians. What are you talking about, sir? Gentlemen, what body count? Not in this story. No spoilers, people are gonna die. Sorry, people you like are gonna die. People you don't like are gonna die, but people are gonna die. And at the end of the story, the world is going to be different because you have to ask your question. You might win the battle, but at what cost? And that's kind of what I'm looking for here. In order to write a villain that does some damage, you have to make the villain your protagonist. So let's talk about what I mean by a protagonist and an antagonist. Protagonist and antagonist, we generally translate in storytelling as hero and villain. Your protagonist is usually your POV character. You're the one you're rooting for them. Usually, you think of a superhero movie. Usually, the villain, it feels like it's the good guys versus the bad guys. It's not actually technically true. A really good example of this would be Infinity War with Thanos. Thanos is actually, by the way, spoiler alert for any of that, but that was 4 years ago. If you haven't seen the movie now, you're never going to watch it, so bite me. Thanos is the protagonist. He's the one with the goal. And your protagonist has a goal, and your antagonist would like to block it. That's kind of my view of that's kind of not my view of it. It's usually the storytelling approach I take. There's also a second kind where you can just have two people who have mutually exclusive goals, like both people who want to win something, like a prom queen, or they're both running for president. Like they can't both win, so one of them has to lose. And the protagonist in that sense is just usually the POV character you're following, and the antagonist is the guy you don't want to win. Generally, though, I like to follow one where my protagonist is somebody with a goal and the antagonist is somebody blocking it. And in this story, my villain is going to be the protagonist. Faith is the one with the goal. She would like to take Jason and Sonny, break them apart piece by piece by systematically destroying every little thing that they hold dear. And then when they are bleeding, broken, and on the floor, she'd like to take her heel of her stiletto and ground them into dust. That's a very specific active goal. You know what? You might not root for that goal, but it'd be entertaining to watch. And Faith was entertaining. Cynthia Preston made that character work in a way that she shouldn't have, because Faith never did any damage. Except that time she made Elizabeth miscarry, but that actually was good in the long term because it meant that Elizabeth and Rick were connected through a child. So yay for us, because that would have really sucked. And we would have had to go over it because fuck Rick. Rick is always the villain of my stories now because I'm older and I realize how toxic and disgusting that they framed all of his stories. That's not this video. So in the story, I am writing a villain who has a plan, and we're going to watch her execute the plan. And we're going to watch her plan mess up a few times because I think it's really fun to watch a villain readjust. She's going to try to kill people who just won't be killed because and she's going to get really focused on, she's going to get stuck on one step of the plan for like half the book because this person just won't fucking die. No matter what she does, somebody always steps in and thwarts the day, and it's going to make her really mad, and it's going to she's going to start making mistakes, and that's kind of what's going to be really fun to watch. I thought it was just fun to talk about what is a villain, what does a villain mean to me, and what makes a villain scary to me. And that's why Manny Ruiz was a little bit scary to me. He was played by a really charismatic actor, which really worked for me. And his storyline had lasting effect. He came in and he caused that train accident and people died. Lucky got injured in that train, in that the pole thing, and he got impaled by a pole. Alexis had to deliver her baby in the middle of nowhere. Reese died, which yay. I'm pretty sure other people died in the train wreck. I don't remember now. No, I don't think anybody else died. But it was a really fun storyline. So Manny had something really, and then Manny came in and gave us, a reason to really root for Patrick, because it turns out Patrick can do brain surgery by flashlight. That was fun. And then Manny kidnapped Elizabeth, which kicked off the drug storyline, and Jason saved her. So that was really good. And then he ended up kidnapping Sam, which led to Jason killing him, throwing him off a roof, and Jason getting injured, and led to more Jason and Elizabeth. So Manny Ruiz from me, and he also shot Sam and left her unable to have children, which kind of was a big part of her storyline for 5 years. And then they fucking erased it because that's what we do now. Bobby had a hysterectomy in the 80s. You guys know that, right? There was no magical surgery that gave that back to her because General Hospital used to make a decision and stick with it. I'm okay with the fact that they did not stick with the Jake death because you don't kill off the liaison baby. Fuck you. I always knew Helena had him hidden somewhere. Knew it. So, Burn in Heaven is already halfway in progress. I have already plotted it out. I know the structure of it. I know all the anchor scenes, which are the scenes that help you, that introduce conflict, create escalate it and then resolve it. So like there's different pieces. So I know all of that, and I know like the major bits and pieces. Now, starting today on Wednesday, August 10th, I'm going to start writing the plot sketch. And my plot sketches are really detailed. It's where I actually write out every single scene that I can think of at the moment to link the story together. And I'll write out like dialogue beats and stuff. So this is the stage it takes the longest. So I'd like to get to it the fastest. Did not get quite as far as I wanted to yesterday because I got some, bad news, but we're gonna move on with our day. And that's what I wanted to talk about. That's definitely the storytelling aspect that I am focusing on for this particular story is the villain. I want Faith to feel dangerous. I want you guys to be genuinely nervous that the people you enjoy are not going to reach the end of the story. Except for Jason and Elizabeth, because I know my audience. And if I kill off one of them, I'm going to hear it for a long time. All right. I will check in with you guys at the end of the month to kind of like give a broad overview of all of the projects. But each week I'm going to check in to let you know how last week went. So next week I'm working on a different sequel, Malice for Bittersweet. Malice finishes off the Brenda and Alcazar storyline, which I'm really excited to get to because that's another storyline where my protagonist is not Jason and Elizabeth. It's actually going to be Brenda, which I think is great. I'm really looking forward to it, but don't worry, it's a Jason Elizabeth focused story, and I'm going to talk about how I can manage to be a Jason Elizabeth writer while still writing Ensemble General Hospital stories, because it's possible. And then the last week, we're going to do Kismet, which is a rewrite of the Michael storyline in 1998 with an aged up Elizabeth, and replacing Robin and putting Elizabeth in there. I'm having a good time so far. I wrote These Small Hours went really well. I was really happy with it. Broken Girl is really good. Oh, and in the background, I'm working on Fool Me Twice, which has a video on the channel already about how book 2 is going. I will have like another video as we move in. But yeah, when you're writing villains, they need to be scary and they need to feel threatening. Can you remember the last time you felt genuinely threatened by a General Hospital villain? You can't, because General Hospital just goes and fucking redeems them. Do you remember Franco? Franco? Yeah. You know how Franco turned out, right? What about Obrecht? We still have her on the show. And then, well, I guess Cyrus, but what did Cyrus really do? He actually did stuff I liked. Wasn't he the one that blew up the floating rib? Which, by the way, thank you for blowing up that, because that should have been Jake's, never should have been changed. He killed off 2 characters we didn't need, so yay. Lulu's in a coma. Yay. And he killed off that doctor that nobody cared about, that Alexis was sleeping with. So, like, okay, yay, Cyrus. The shame is that he was played by a fucking excellent actor, and he should have been a lot fucking creepier and scarier than he was, but we're not allowed to have nice things. And Peter was a villain. Was anybody here really scared of Peter? No? Yeah, that's what I thought.